I think making the claim that that it's this one specific thing is silly. That's why I agree with you generally, but I think the framing of it is really a bit weird.
Wait, what part of my framing do you disagree with?
I saying that it's this one specific thing that it's very high likelihood or whatever, as I said before, that it might be like a,
My phone's gonna die, so if I stop chatting here real quick, it's because my phone died. So real quick, I just want to know, because we keep hearing the word genocide of the Uyghurs, okay? Okay, when you say genocide, what do you mean by genocide?
Are we really gonna I didn't realize we was talking to Tankies tonight. Give me a second.
Oh boy.
Uyghur genocide. Give me a second. I can pull up some stuff about the Uyghurs if you really want me to. The estimated, this is literally, I'm just literally going to Wikipedia. If you want me to do more research than that, it's going to require a little bit more effort than I.
Neo, you're not denying that there's a genocide happening. You just want to know what he means when he says it.
Yeah, that's literally it. As somebody that's half Tajik, the entire border conflict actually affects my family. But
yeah, there are internment camps with hundreds of thousands of people. But I'm sorry, I said hundreds of thousands. According to Adrian Benz, it's 1.5 million have been detained in camps.
That's
saying
insane,
the number,
dude.
Yeah, 1.5 million. Yeah. So,
oh my goodness.
I think the torture that's going on, the compulsory sterilization and contraception that's going on, the refuse, the forcible control over people's families while they're in these camps is a serious problem. Yeah, I think this is a genocide. I think that these things are really awful.
Okay, because I was going to say, normally when we say genocide, we normally mean actively,
murder.
Yeah, actively killing and.
Well, it's a cultural genocide.
It's a cultural genocide, which is
okay.
Correct.
If you feel the need to describe a difference between rounding people up, making them slaves in forced labor camps, getting millions of people, controlling their families while they're in these camps, ensuring that their families aren't able to escape while they're in these camps, ensuring that these people are tortured while in these camps, and you want to make a difference because they're not literally intentionally killing people. They're just
I do think that the distinction is important. I do think. Hold on. Okay, so we call it a genocide because you're getting rid of a certain type of people, right? And so even in this case, they are getting rid of their culture, which makes that type of people end up disappearing. Even if you're not explicitly killing off each and every individual. So I think that when it comes to a moral implication, it would be a lot worse if they're rounding them up and putting them in gas chambers or something like that to literally kill them off. So I think the distinction is important, but as far as it being a genocide, it's still a genocide. It's just a cultural genocide.
If your contention is that I should say an ethnic cleansing and I should say enslavement and rape and torture of 1.6 million Uyghurs, 1.6 million Uyghurs, instead of saying that this is a genocide against the Uyghurs, okay, I can make that. I would argue pretty small clarification. I still think that as a general rule, my contention that we shouldn't trust the Chinese government.
Chase Mitchell says they're just going to summer camp. So
yeah, Chase Mitchell's is a coward because he's not in this fucking chat.
Yeah, Chase needs to jump in here.
Coward.
Chase actually, Chase knows a lot about this stuff too.
Yeah.
I do think that there is a pretty big, this is just me personally. I do believe that there is a big distinction between out and out genocide, where we're putting people in gas chambers, and cultural genocide, where we're trying to wipe out a culture.
I think that's reasonable. I think that's a reasonable contention.
Because when most people think genocide, they think we're putting them in we're mass killing and putting people in body pits and things like that.
Would you be comfortable with the framework of ethnic cleansing?
No, because that's a word that's definitely used to imply just mass killing of an ethnic group.
Wait. Do you think that what happened to the Jews in Egypt is an ethnic cleansing?
When they went in, I was going to
when they forced out 50,000 Jews and now they have literally less than 50 Jews in Egypt, do you think that was an ethnic cleansing?
Yeah, probably.
But they didn't kill. They didn't like round up that many Jews comparative to the total population. The majority of Jews left, right? They were refugees. They were forced out, but they didn't literally kill them, right? How about the Inquisition? Were the Muslims and Jews who were killed in the Inquisition, was that an ethnic cleansing? Or was that just like, hey, buddy, leave or convert? It's not an ethnic cleansing. They didn't kill that many people unless the people
I think you
wanted
can
to
just
die.
say, hold on. I think cultural genocide is good enough. Cultural genocide is correct. I think everybody's fine with that. And even if you just say even if you just say genocide, like we all know that you mean cultural genocide, and that's all that matters. So like it's perfectly fine the way it is.
I don't know why all of a sudden we're like defending torture and rape and trying to downplay how awful it is.
Stop calling it defending, dude. Like you agreed with the overall like idea that like there's a difference between the two, and the issue is that lots of people on like Twitch and Twitter and all of these places, they just use the word genocide and say that there's absolutely no difference between cultural genocide and actual genocide because one way or the other the people are gone. And I just disagree with that, but
no, I agree that there's a difference. My point is not that there isn't a difference, because there is a difference.
Right.
My point is that it's an odd thing to correct. Right? If you said Iran as Iran, which is incorrect, right? It is Iran, right? It's not Iran, right? Like, sure, correct it once, but don't like make it a giant thing. I was mispronouncing Uyghurs.
All she did was asking you clarified.
Yeah,
you clarified, and that could have been the end of it, and like you guys continue talking about it. But yeah, I think that just like making the correction and understanding was perfectly fine.
Okay.
Yeah, that's literally all it is. Because when, like, I don't know.
We already have the understanding. We don't need to keep talking about that part.
I just wanted to explain to Quibbles why like I asked that. It's just because like a lot of times when I hear people talk about it, especially lefties on Twitch, it's like they literally think that Uyghurs are being like thrown in gas chambers and shit like that. So it's
they are being enslaved and raped, and tortured, and they are having their children stripped away from them, and they are having their children's lives are at threat, and they don't have basic press freedom. Obviously, they don't have basic freedom of movement. They don't have basic freedoms that you and I take for granted.
I don't understand how the United States hasn't gone in yet. Like, I thought we were gonna go in like freaking months ago, dude.
We're never going to fuck with BRICS. Are you kidding? The BRICS alliance. Do you realize how detrimental to the entire world, if there even was a world,
we can't go to war with China.
Yeah,
we can't go to war with China, Tom.
That would be a fucking shit show.
I don't know what is the other option. Like, we went to war with freaking Germany, who was a superpower at the time, over them killing a bunch of freaking.
No. We went to war with Germany because Germany declared war on us.
I understand.
After we declared war on Japan.
I understand.
We didn't know about the Holocaust until literally.
I understand, but like you would think that we would have if we did know about it, right?
No.
We would not have gone to war. We knew about what was happening in Sudan. We didn't do anything. We knew what was happening in Nigeria. We didn't do anything. What are you talking about?
The only time we've intervened in like an act of genocide or active ethnic cleansing was during Kosovo, and that was only because Kosovo was strategically an ally for us. If anything, it would be because Xinjiang and
Xi Jinping.
No, not Xi Jinping. The province that's on the Tajik border.
Oh, Xinjiang.
If anything, it would be Russia that would be stepping in, because Tajikistan, where the border conflicts are happening, where a lot of Uyghurs are escaping to, have a military alliance with Russia because they're a Commonwealth of Independent State.
Yeah. So I do think it's like, okay. What Tom just said about going to war with China is, I think, part of the reason why a lot of people in the American media were scared to talk about the reality that is a very real possibility that this was an accidental leak from a lab, given the context of the war hawking and the stupidity of someone like Trump, particularly someone like Trump who was pretty clearly and actively looking for someone to blame so that he could get a better access to a better chance at re-election. So like, I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's coming from a place of malice that people are trying to hide the truth as journalists. But like, that is not the job of a journalist. That's the job of like, political junkies and people who are sort of, pushing a particular agenda. I don't knock people like Brian Tyler Cohen for saying certain stuff in terms of what's happening with respect to coronavirus. I don't knock people who are on Twitch like Vosh or Destiny for saying that shit either. What I do knock is people who are actually journalists and are actually responsible for providing like baseline truthful information to the public. I think you have certain obligations as a journalist, and one of your obligations as a journalist is to just report the story, regardless of the consequences. From a political standpoint, just report the story.
Yeah, no, we need to go to war.
Tom, stop saying that. Why?
Yeah, Tom.
Because the implications of allowing this sort of thing to go on or to happen means that they literally get to get away with whatever they want. Like, this is as bad as it gets. And if you're not willing to go to war to stop what do you call it? Like human rights violations like this, then like what are you willing to go to war over? Like, what's the point? Like, they kill some of your own people, like, so what? Like, if it's not like 1.5 million people, they only kill a couple thousand of your people, then like it's not that big of a deal, right?
We're not the world government. We're the American government.
No, we are the world government, though.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are. No, we are the world government, though. Stop lying. We are the world government.
Lies.
We are the freaking world government.
Countries are inherently self-interested.
You ever heard of the UN? Like, they just lean on the United States to freaking do all of their dirty work.
I didn't say we had a world government. I didn't say we had a world government.
No, I'm not saying. No, I understand. No, I'm saying that the UN expects like the United States to be the world government, the world bully, the police for the entire world. They expect us to do those things.
That's not my job. When did I sign up as an American to be the world government?
No, you didn't sign. No, you didn't sign up to be in the military. But the people who sign up for the military understand that they are signing up to go be the world government or the world police.
They did not swear allegiance to the world government. They swore allegiance to America.
And America is the world police.
Our Constitution.
Right.
Us. No, not the world.
So
America.
then what pushes things too far? Like, at what point do we stop other countries? Are they allowed to do whatever they want just because they're different? Like, they have their own culture or something? Like,
okay. I have to answer. I believe in relational utilitarianism, right? I believe that the job of the United States government is to protect the United States, just as I believe that the job of the Pennsylvania government is to protect Pennsylvania.
Yeah, sure. All of these people accidentally got born in the wrong country, and now they get to be genocided, and that's just the end of it.
Tom, that's not what I said. Wait. What I'm saying is that the mayor of Pittsburgh, where I live, I would vote his ass out in a heartbeat if he sold out our ability to get 500 jobs for Pittsburgh in order to give 5,000 jobs for the people of New York. Why? Because he's not the mayor of New York. He's the mayor of Pittsburgh. His job is to protect Pittsburgh jobs. His job is to protect the people of Pittsburgh. That's his job because he is the Pittsburgh government. Similarly, the job of the United States government is to protect the United States. It doesn't matter how many people die overseas unless it has to do with people who are Americans or a component of the broader lexicon of American interests. So
that is what you said then. That is what you're saying then. You're saying that because they were born in the wrong country, that there is nothing that anybody should do about it. They shouldn't.
Anybody. That's not what I said. I said the American government shouldn't. Not that nobody should, right? I myself have given, like my family has done a bunch of stuff for the for international development. I've worked in Malawi with Habitat for Humanity. I've worked in Guatemala. I've worked in Ecuador. Like there's lots of stuff that I've done internationally, right? We as human beings are part of multiple things. We're part of the United States. We're part of our state. We're part of our city. We're part of our family. We're part of our religion. We're also part of the broadest society, which is to say the humanity writ large.
The Twitch
right?
politics family.
Sure. I love you. We have obligations as human beings to the totality of the world. But our obligations as humans is different than our obligations as members of America. Those are two different things. It is the same as saying that we as members of the city, right, have obligations to the city. That doesn't mean that we as members of our individual company or as members of our individual union have obligations to the city. It is rather our job as citizens of the city that we have obligations to the city, not the union, but the city.
No,
the citizens of the city.
We as humans should help other humans. I understand that, like, for the most part, we're only responsible for our own people, but I do think that there's a point where it gets pushed too far.
Okay, so I think the thing here,
like, you have to agree with that. At what point do you think that it is our job, or like we should go into another country, that we ought to do it? The United States. Or even like the United States alliances. Like, at what point do you think, if Iran is bombing all of their own people and just killing all of them, they want to kill everybody, like, at what point do we step in? At what point do we do something about that?
What point do we step in? As human beings, people like George L. Orwell went into Spain as George Orwell, right? Just as a person, because he felt as a human being, as part of humanity writ large, that he personally had responsibilities to the people of Spain, even though he'd never been to Spain before. That is a context that we might very well reach. That is different. I'm having too many of these peanut butter things. Excuse me. That is different than saying that we as a government have an obligation. There's a difference between government obligations and human obligations.
Wait. But that's what I'm saying is, as humans, there is a human's rights violation, and that, like, as humans, we should be helping other humans.
You as a human have an obligation in response. The American government is not responsible for the totality of humans. They are a union of the people. They are by and for the people of America. That is literally built into our law.
You're purposely avoiding my question.
Of America.
Say what you're actually trying to say. My question is, at what point do we respond? Like, as a government, at what point?
Government, never.
So they can kill their entire country, and, like, we would do nothing about it.
There's a difference between a government and a people.
Okay, so say what you're trying. You're not making sense. Say the entire thing. What does that mean? What is the implication?
What I'm saying is that there is a point where we as human beings have certain obligations. We as human beings have an obligation to international development. We as human beings have obligations to ensure that everyone is provided food. We as human beings have an obligation to ensure that people are not being genocided, that they're not being ethnically cleansed. All of these things, those are human obligations. But there's a difference between human obligations and governmental obligations.
Can I butt in real quick? So, Quibbles, I think it's sort of like a bit weird to make the statement that a government should never respond internationally. If we're talking,
I'm saying that they should respond to that which is a threat to themselves, to the people of America.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I don't agree with Tom here. The United States is not responsible for the world. That is something I'm pretty sure we can all agree.
I'm not saying we're responsible for them. I didn't say that. All right, but
the thing is, we countries in themselves are self-interested. They want to optimize the conditions for their country. They want to be in the least amount of threat internationally. They want to have the most resources, have the most people, whatever, what have you. that's the goal of a country. Generally speaking, we have the stuff like the UN, for example, that would be able to intervene with stuff like genocide and stuff like that. That would not be the responsibility of America.
No, it is though. Like that's literally like the entire point of like. Yeah, no, Chase just posted it. In theory, states and international communities have a responsibility to protect people from mass atrocity crime when their government fails to do so. Every UN member state's committed to intervening. That is like
disagreeing with me.
No, he's saying that they are supposed to intervene. That like this, they have already agreed to intervene.
Right, the international community. If you have,
if you're a part of the international community,
no, you're just a facet. We are not the totality. If the international community,
I'm not saying that we do it by ourselves. I said even with allies, like or in general, like there should be a.
No.
I'm not saying the United States by themselves just goes and takes on China. Like that's ridiculous.
The answer is that there is a certain point where the international community has a responsibility to respond to certain atrocities that happen as part of the international community, because the international community includes that which is happening in Kenya, for example, right? But America does not include that which is happening in Kenya, because Kenya is not part of America. The international community does include it.
You're doing it again, dude. I don't feel like you're actually like responding. You're just saying a bunch of things. Like
no, I'm not. I am responding. What I'm saying is that the international community has a responsibility to the international community, just as the national government has an obligation to Flint, Michigan. Pittsburgh does not have an obligation to Flint, Michigan. It doesn't matter how awful the water is in Flint, Michigan. Pittsburgh, the government of Pittsburgh, has no obligations thereof whatsoever. The United States government does, right? Michigan does. Right? Flint does. The governments that are responsible for those people. But
the international community, all of our militaries are part of that. Like the UN uses all of our militaries as in order to like reinforce what it is that they believe that we should all be doing. Like that's why the United States ends up acting as the world police, because they use us to put pressure on everybody else.
The United States government includes Pittsburgh, right?
Right.
The United States government includes both Pittsburgh and also Flint, Michigan. So when the United States government has obligations to Flint, Michigan, what in essence we're saying is that we are including Pittsburgh as that which has a responsibility to Flint, Michigan. But we're not saying that we have obligations as residents of Pittsburgh to the people of Flint, Michigan. We're saying that we have obligations as residents of America to the people of Flint, Michigan. There's a difference.
Okay. So as people, right?
America does not.
Okay.
Go for it.
Well, again, dude, you're just saying a bunch of random stuff. You're not actually like answering what it is that I'm saying. At what point, who is it that responds to this, and who does something about it? Then, like, you can keep saying all this random stuff. Who does something about it, and at what point do they do that? Okay, but we are part of the UN.
Tom, yeah, but we need to be making a united decision.
Okay.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
UN, that's a separate entity.
I keep saying over and over. That's what I'm saying.
For a long time, right? The United States did not have a single military for the totality of the United States. We had individual militias of individual states, right?
Oh,
okay. So when the United States went to war with, say, France or, say, Britain, right? It was not that literally a bunch of people who had, military garments that said, I am from the United States, literally did the war. Rather, who literally did the war was people who had garments that said, I am those of Connecticut, I am those of Massachusetts, whoever it might be, right? That's who literally did the war. But who is responsible for the war making is the United States. Who is responsible for the creation of that war is the United States, because that is the larger organization that is responsible for the decision. Similarly, the United Nations, right, the international community, can have a response to something that happens in Kenya because Kenya is a component of the international community, right? But America might be the ones who are literally sending their troops to respond to that situation. But it is not America who is making the decision, and it cannot be America who makes that decision. Connecticut on its own should not be able to go to war with France. The United States should be able to go to war with France.
Wouldn't you guys be disagreeing on the way that originally stated his plan? Because the way that Tom originated this argument is America should go to war with China.
I'm not saying just the United States. I'm saying that
that's what you said originally.
Yes, I'm saying the United States, but I'm saying if the United States stepped in, other countries would do so too. I'm not saying that they would just go do it by themselves. And I am saying that as the UN, they should have made a decision already to step in, and that the United States would be part of that and even spearheading that, because it is necessary at this point.
Okay, so you're saying the international community should respond?
Yes, I've said over and over, the United States and their allies, or the United States and the superpowers, or the United States and the Western countries. Yes, there should be a movement to go do something about this, and it doesn't seem as though any sort of soft power has been able to influence China in any way whatsoever. And so at this point, there has to be something done about this. And if it's at I didn't know it was at 1.5 million, dude. That's gotten so far out of hand to where something should have been done about this way before now.
I shouldn't have said that. That was a silly thing to say. Yeah. So Chase does bring up a reasonable point, which is that both China and Russia have veto power in the UN, which is obviously true. They're part of the Security Council. So from a practical standpoint, it is true that under the present framework of the United Nations, it is impossible to do that which you're describing. However, I agree in principle that it makes sense to change the way that the United Nations is structured. I agree in principle that it makes sense to enact certain international responses to that which is happening in individual nations, depending on the circumstance. But it is not the same as saying that America should be the world police. It is not the same as saying that America should just be able to...
Not saying that they should be the world police. I'm saying they are the world police.
Okay, what does that mean, that they are the world police?
It means that when they see something going on that they don't like or that they feel is wrong, they go in and try to stop it.
Is there a difference between being the world police and being a colonialist?
Probably not. If they feel as though they have the right to go into other countries and tell them what to do, then probably not.
Okay, so you're saying that America is a colonialist state?
Sure. Especially if you're considering just having bases on other countries' colonialism, then yeah, I think that's fine.
You're comfortable with it. You're comfortable with us being a colonial state.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not comfortable with us being a colonial state. I think the colonialism is pretty disgusting. Actually, I think that it's rooted in white supremacy. I think it's just it's rooted in an assumption of superiority, an assumption that you are fundamentally better and you deserve to rule the entire world, even though we only represent 1/20th of the world population. Less than that, actually. It's 8 billion, 7 billion. We have 350, not 350, 40 something, whatever. So we're 1/20th of the world population. We should control the rest of the world, even though we're only 5%.
When it comes to human rights violations, yeah.
Why? Why is that? Why do we have that right?
Because one way or the other, I don't think that there. So we can talk about different cultures or different people being able to do different things, or different countries being able to do different things and have their own style and but when it comes to when it comes to genociding an entire group of people, then yeah, I think that that doesn't matter anymore. I don't think that any country should just be left alone or has the right to just kill off tons of people.
Do you think that institutions matter?
Yeah, of course.
So, okay, let's ask it this way. Do you think that government has a right to make laws?
Yeah.
Why?
because they own or they have a monopoly on the use of force.
Do you think that a government is legitimate if they're a dictatorship?
Yeah.
They are legitimate.
Yeah.
Just because they control the military.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a government and a mob?
That the mob has like small amounts of the use of force in smaller places.
So if a government is small enough, it becomes a mob?
If the mob takes over an entire area, then there's really not...
So are mobs legitimate?
What do you mean, are they legitimate?
Are they legitimate? Ought they exist?
I don't know how to answer that.
Well, if you had, if you like, do you think that it is a good thing for society that mobs exist?
Probably not. No.
You think it's a good thing for society that governments exist?
Yeah.
Why? What's the difference?
The mobs don't seem to have like a democratic.
Okay. So democracy.
I think it would. I would argue that it would be the crime that mobs perpetuate within normally functioning.
Okay, so democracy is what gives legitimacy to a government?
Say that again?
Is democracy what gives legitimacy to a government then?
I don't like using the word legitimacy. Like, I feel like as long as they have like a monopoly on the use of force, they are legitimate, but like
moral legitimacy, not legitimacy in terms of like do they literally control the region? Of course they do, but from a moral standpoint, from an ought standpoint, I don't know if you're familiar with like the is-ought divide, but like from a moral perspective. Yeah. So from a moral perspective, do you think that it is a good thing that democracies control that which is part of the democracy?
Yeah, I think that democracies are good.
Okay. I agree with you, to be clear. The reason that I think democracies are good is because I think that they are the closest to a reasonable representation of the people within that place that's possible. Is that fair?
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
So it becomes a less legitimate democracy if, for example, none of the people who don't own land are able, or the people who don't own land, I said that as a double negative, whatever. The people who don't own land are not allowed to vote. I think that makes you a less legitimate government. Is that fair? From a moral perspective.
People who don't own land shouldn't be able to vote. Is that what you just said?
Yeah. If you say that people who don't own land can't vote, so non-landowners aren't allowed to vote, I would say that is a bad thing that makes you a less legitimate government from a moral perspective.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. If you say women aren't allowed to vote, similarly, that would also be bad from a moral perspective.
Yeah,
right?
like the people who are affected by the laws, if they're not allowed to vote on the laws, then that would be bad.
So why? Okay, I agree. So why should America be able to be the world police, to police the totality of the world when we represent only 5% of the people? Only 5% of the people are allowed to vote on that which will affect the totality of the world. Why is that fair?
I mean, I don't know what you keep using these very loaded words and then you'll define them, but keep using a word that like I don't feel as though actually like
I'm saying fair.
Fits what you're saying. Yeah, I don't like the word fair. Like I don't know. I don't think that exists. Like I don't think that this is
morally just from an arbitrary standpoint that you and I happen to agree on, which given the fact that you said that it is unjust that the government could control from a moral perspective, not that it's illegitimate from like a military perspective, obviously that you can still control, but from a moral perspective, it's illegitimate to say that women aren't allowed to vote. It's illegitimate from a moral perspective to say that non-landowners aren't allowed to vote, presumably that black people aren't allowed to vote. All of those things are illegitimate from a moral perspective. Why is it not illegitimate to say that 5% of the people of the entirety of the world should be able to police the rest of the 95%?
Again, I think that like, let me ask you, do you think like from a, just like a, I don't know how to frame this. Do you think that like mobs should have the ability to form and exist and, or should they just be like wiped out as soon as we see any sign of them?
I don't know what you mean by a mob.
like you use the word mob, like gangsters, like.
Oh, you mean like a criminal underworld that's actively responsible for crime?
Yeah.
Okay, because there's that version of the mob, and there's also like the crowd of people who are torturers and shit. Yeah, I think that broadly mobs are probably bad as a general rule of thumb. However, there are certain circumstances. I can think of places in South America, for example, where though mobs are pretty awful, they are unfortunately more representative of the people than the actual government thereof, because the government is so corrupt and the government does not actually have a democracy of any sort.
Yeah. So I would say that like the United States just is a mob, like doing whatever they want to do. The United States probably has the right to like step in and do whatever they want to do, and it's up to China if they want to continue like being crappy, then like it's up to them to stop us.
I have a question that's somewhat unrelated.
Just as I think like with the Native Americans, like if they wanted to keep their place, it was up to them to stop us.
So I have a question that's sort of unrelated here, but I sort of want to answer. If a mob was democratic, would you consider that to be a like? When I say like, I'm not being democratic, like voting for I would consider
it So, for example, there was the pirates of the Caribbean. I forget which island. But there was a number of pirate ships that were democratically electing their pirate kings. Or I mean, you called them kings, but they weren't literally kings. They were elected presidents, if you will, or captains of the ship. I think that is a democracy. Now, it's true that from an exterior perspective, that they were demonstrably dangerous for international trade. It is true that they also freed a number of slaves. There's complexity about whether or not they were morally dubious at the very least. But they were internally a democracy. I think that's very similar to saying that America is internally a democracy, but if it controls the 95% of the people who are not part of America, I don't think that it's a full democracy. I think it's a democracy that is very similar to Athens, where only landowning men are able to vote. I think it's a democracy that is very similar to the United States at its founding.
But we're not like a full-on democracy, though. Like, we're a democratic republic, right? Like, we don't vote on the laws. We don't vote on wars. We don't vote on any of those things anyways. So, like, regardless, that you're saying that because the people or the countries where we're intervening, they don't have a say on any of those things at all, or like who's making the decisions, that it would be illegitimate because they're not
I think that moral legitimacy is garnered through democracy. So I think that things like the Electoral College make us less legitimate from a moral perspective. It doesn't mean that that all of a sudden, boom, poof of the hand, like we're no longer legitimate as a government. But I think that makes us less legitimate than if we didn't have an electoral college. I think that it makes us more legitimate that we allow all people who are over the age of 18 to vote. That doesn't mean that I think that. We don't actually do that, because we have some number of people who are felons who are not allowed to vote, right? So the fact that we have felons who are not allowed to vote makes us less democratic, makes us less legitimate, but it doesn't make us not legitimate. It doesn't make us not, valid as a country.
Right. Yeah, like I just said, same like if you have a monopoly on the use of force within your country, you're in charge because you have the ability to do the things that you want to do. If you choose to have a democracy within that government, then that's cool. I'm happy. But like the point is
from what I'm hearing, you guys consider like something that's inherently like, and like what I consider a mob would be like an organization that is fundamentally criminal, right?
Yeah, we're talking about like gangsters, like the Russian mob.
So from what I'm hearing, you guys would consider something like that a country if they were to have rule either by fear or otherwise. So you would consider that some form of country, if like a legitimate country, if they were
type of government,
democratic. Yeah. Okay.
I would consider them an organization of military control. I think practically government means something that is larger than most mobs are able to or even cartels are able to maintain.
Well, if they took over like let's say a small town or something like that, like technically at that point they would be the government there.
For all intents and purposes, yes. I think that's fair. So the question, though, there's sort of two versions of what's happening here. We're having one conversation of who literally is in control. And the answer is obviously who literally is in control of Ecuador? America, obviously. Who's literally in control of Panama? America, obviously. Who's literally in control of, the Panama Canal or the Suez Canal? Who's literally in control of Guantanamo? Who's literally in control? All of this, the obvious answer is America. From a physical standpoint, who's literally in control? Obviously America. The question, though, is from a moral perspective, is that just? That's the question that I'm more interested in.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I can answer that question. Like, it's like, should the wind blow? Like, I don't know. Like, who cares? Like, it's gonna blow. Like, should the person who has the most power be in control? How do you answer that? Like, I don't know. Like, that's just America, the way it is.
America doesn't have the most power, functionally. If we're talking about like military power or something like that, sure.
We can have conversations about like who is in control of America. I think it's fair to say that white landowning men continue to have the lion's share of control of America. And yet it is just to say that non-landowning, non-white, non-men should also be able to vote. It was justified that we make that shift, even though it doesn't change the undercurrent and the reality that, yes, as a general rule of thumb, all but one of our presidents have been white men, right? And I think most of them, at the very least, have been landowning white men.
Yeah, sure.
And yet it's valuable to give more access to power to those who are not part of the power structure. From a moral perspective.
I mean, the way you're framing things, like, it just seems as though, like, at that point it becomes obvious that, like, if we're talking about from a moral perspective, then, like, the question is, well, is it moral to just allow people to start killing other people? Like, there's two different types of, like, moral injustice here, where you're valuing more than the other, and I'm valuing the other more, to say, like,
do you think that if women are able to vote, that will have a demonstrable danger to American society? Presumably your answer is no, right?
I'm sorry, I'm not.
Do you think there was danger to the United States, the capacity of the United States to be a just society, when women were provided the opportunity to vote? Was that a danger?
Was it a danger to the United States? Women should be able to vote.
Women should be able to vote, and it was not a danger to the United States that women were permitted to vote.
Right.
Okay, I agree with that. Okay, I don't think that it would be dangerous to the international community if more than 5% of the international community were permitted the opportunity to be represented as part of the international community. So I don't think that if, for example, the people of Nigeria or the people of Malawi or the people of Zambia were permitted an opportunity to be, even if it was a segmented and imperfect access to the opportunity to be a part of the international balance of power, that would be something that would harm the international community. I think that would be beneficial to the international community. I think it would be beneficial to our ability to perform justice.
Yeah, I think us going into other countries by using the UN or the international community and stopping them from committing a genocide would be beneficial to the international community and would be more just.
These are two different kinds of justice. There's one kind of justice, which is institutional. And the second kind of justice that you're describing is practical. So you're saying that from a practical standpoint, there are certain end things that whatever system for international military operation exists, whatever that system is, that system ought to do this thing in China, or that system ought to do this thing in Sudan or in Kenya, wherever it might be. Right? That's one form of justice, but there's also institutional justice. There's a question of institutionally, is it good that people in Nigeria are not part of this decision-making process?
Okay, so yeah, so I would say if they are willing to do something like genocide a group of people, then like that institution probably should no longer exist. And I think it would be just for another institution and to go in and make decisions for them.
But you're not answering my component of it. You're saying this is an action that I desire the international, whatever this organization that has military control of the international military, whatever that military does, this is the thing that I want that military to do. My question is not what the military should do. My question is who should control that military. And my answer is the totality of those who are operated upon by that military.
Yeah,
my
the
answer
people
is
who we voted in are in charge of the military, though. Like, it's not like the military's voting on what the military does. Oh, wow.
Right. The people that America voted on get to decide what the American government does in places like Nigeria. Right. But it doesn't just affect the Americans. It affects the Nigerians too.
Right.
And so if this is an international military, if you're going to call this the international police, then it has obligations on an international level. It is not just an obligation to the United States. So while the United States military has an obligation solely to the United States, this international police system has an obligation to the international community.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. Like, what you're just making statements. Like, okay, cool.
So therefore, when you say that America should go to war with China, that is dangerous. That is saying that 5% of the world should be able to unilaterally decide to attack 15%. I don't know exactly what percent China represents of the world, and just attack them unilaterally on their own.
Okay,
that
first off, again, I've said over and over, I'm not just saying the United States versus China in a war. That would be stupid. I have said over and over, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that, like, there should be allies, or there should be through the UN or whatever, like there should be a large group of countries that make the decision to do this.
I gotcha. Okay, then we agree. This is fair.